Securing macOS with Jamf Pro. Has the world become an unsecure place, or have threats just moved to a different platform? We've seen many types of threats. One could be an attack via malicious software or through exploits using vulnerabilities in order to steal information. But also we're hearing about data loss or leakage, where organizations have accidentally had sensitive information made publicly available. Here's an example where we've had an OS developer capture and store too much personal data without proper consent. I'd like to show how we can secure macOS with the new General Data Protection Regulation in mind. We'll look at building a baseline to secure macOS. We'll look at how Jamf Pro performs checks for compliance once we have our baseline in place, and finally taking action, specifically using automation to remediate out-of-compliance devices. The first step is to understand what data the GDPR now regulates. This is a vast regulation and would recommend working with your data processing officer or security team to gain as much knowledge as possible. The most obvious part relates to third-party data. That includes personal data related to an organization, customer, or partners. GDPR also requires protecting your own organization's data. This includes personal data of an EU individual. For example, personal data relating to your employees. Essentially, any personal data of an EU individual that an organization stores, collects, or processes for any reason falls under the purview of the GDPR. Microsoft have shared a 4-point plan to begin the journey to GDPR compliance. Discover. First, identify what personal data you have and where it resides. Manage. Govern how personal data is used and accessed. Protect. Establish security controls to prevent, detect, and respond to vulnerabilities and data breaches. And finally, report. Keep required documentation and continuously review and update your data protection policies and practices. With these 4 points in mind, we'll look at how using Jamf Pro we can secure your macOS endpoints. The biggest potential negative impact of GDPR are the possibility of fines and the resulting erosion of an organization's good standing in the eyes of its employees, business partners, customers, and other entities whose personal data it handles. Having visibility of your devices is critical. Knowing what you have and being able to secure those devices is one of the key elements of being compliant, no matter what data you hold. To achieve that with device management, we want to define the security baseline, where we detail what restrictions are required, such as type of encryption, or even what software is required. Then we want to use extensive live inventory data to perform checks on these compliance. Finally, take action, using Jamf Pro to automate our compliance remediation using our powerful policies and profiles. So let's take a closer look at defining your security baseline. A key point of the GDPR is privacy by design and privacy by default. Under these requirements, companies need to prove that they're in control of user data and that they've taken steps to protect it. Having strong passwords and be able to enforce policies across all types of accounts, including local users. These can be easily configured within Jamf Pro. The GDPR also points to encryption as an appropriate technical or organizational measure in some cases to secure endpoints. Apple devices are designed with encryption in mind. Containing hardware to optimize encryption, iOS enables full disk encryption when a passcode enabled, and macOS has full disk encryption built in to the OS, called FileVault. These can be enabled via Jamf Pro with FileVault recovery key escrowed within the Jamf Pro console. New keys can also be reissued. So why use a third-party tool which is reactive to the changes when Apple released new OS versions, when you can leverage the built-in encryption provided by Apple? Deploying a policy for encryption, we can also report on the encryption status. Here we have an example where an individual recovery key has been set and it's escrowed back into the management tool. We can also use an institutional key or a combination of both. With Jamf Pro, it's easy to wipe a lost Mac or just one that needs to be reset. Wipe and secure devices with a single command. Apple's device enrollment program allows devices to maintain their management after being reset. To restore the computer to the original factory settings, the user must enter the passcode that you specified when you sent the wipe command. Here we can create app whitelist or blacklists according to the needs of your corporate network. Additionally, informative policies enable you to inform or educate your users by giving them alternatives to use. We can also provide a curated list via the self-service app. The next point is auditing reporting. Jamf Pro enables you to track policies, what has been created and changed over time, and track which policies have been run on which devices. Here, this shows how we can audit the history of any policy created or edited. View details of the policy and changes, and how we can view audit history policies run on devices. Lastly, track who's viewed the file vault recovery key. Let's move on to checks for compliance. By using the rich inventory data that Jamf Pro gathers on devices, we can build a detailed view of your environment, what applications and versions are installed, and view the current state of the devices. Apple believe in keeping your software up to date is one of the most important things you can do to maintain your Apple's product security. Software vulnerabilities are continuously being found. The key to protecting your organization hinges on software updates and security patches. Make sure they are installed on target devices promptly. The new features of Jamf Pro is the advancement of patch management. Patch management consists of 4 steps: the identification of the patch, packaging it up, uploading it into your server, and then applying it to your end devices. We've taken an iterative approach on the development of patch and taking it one step at a time instead of trying to solve them all at once. With version 9, we added reporting, and with version 10, so far we've added patch policy. Let's walk through what they look like as today. Identify. We need to identify what patches are available and what devices need the patch. Jamf currently monitors several software titles that we believe to be the most popular, and we're continuously monitoring this list and adding new titles. These are monitored by Jamf employees, and we publish notifications within 24 hours. These notifications arrive inside the Jamf Pro server or via email. We not only display the current version, but also list old versions too. This is very handy when trying to determine when specific software titles were released. And to see what this process looks like in Jamf Pro, let's switch back to our server. First, let's navigate to patch management from the sidebar. And then choose the new button at the upper right. Here we can see the software titles that Jamf currently tracks. For this example, we're going to be using Google Chrome, an app that always seems to have an update available. Starting off in the Software Title Settings tab, we can assign it to a site and choose how we receive notifications. Some patch titles have Jamf built extension attributes that need to be accepted first before saving the patch notification. They are not editable. Now we navigate to the definitions page to see a list of patches Google Chrome has. Before we move further with patch policy, we first need to save this software title. Once saved, we now brings us into the patch report. It's also worth noting this table incorporates the new table view as indicated by the 3 columns icon in the upper right. Here we can see a list of Macs that have Google Chrome installed and how many need to be updated. All of them. Let's explore this report in a bit more in depth. We can see our nice pie chart that shows us percentages of Macs running the latest version. In this case, none of them. We also see the number of devices running different versions. And here we see a list of Macs with software version details. Again, this table has the new view applied to it. You can sort and add columns plus apply filters all in this view. So that's patch notification, and we think it works really well. Next, we have packaging and uploading. This represents a very complex piece in the patch management workflow. This is a manual process, but there are a number of third-party integrations available. We recommend using your favorite auto packaging tool to get your packages in an automated fashion. You can upload these packages to Jamf Pro and make them available to your distribution servers. Finally, apply. Let's take a good look at these brand new patch policies. Patch policies enable you to automatically scope patches to eligible devices, notifying the user via self-service, and is a really slick way of keeping your end users' devices up to date. We're going to go ahead and build our patch policy for Google Chrome. Click on the patch policies. This is our patch policy. We can give it a name and enable it. Let's see what other options there are. Here we can choose the target version. Here we can choose our distribution method. Now that we have everything set up, we can move over to set up the scope. We can now see what devices are eligible for the patch. This is important because it's a little different from your normal scoping. Let's see what it says. So we need to set up our refinement first to choose who we want to receive this patch. Now that we've set up our General Settings tab and our scope, we can now navigate to the user's interaction. If we decide to deploy this patch via self-service, we can define how our users interact. We can define the button name, give it a description, and even an icon. This is separate from the initial policy. We can then set up notification and reminders. And lastly, we can define what our deadline and grace periods are, plus define what our messaging is for the auto install. Let's preview this message. That's it. Our patch policy is now set up for Google Chrome. Let's go back to our list of patch policies. Here we can see our Chrome patch for the latest version. I can view them as a list, or I can view them as a dashboard. Why so many? Well, we like to test updates and approved updates. This allows for a tiered rollout of our software. You could go even further. Specific OS versions might need specific patches. You can even roll out patches specific to user groups, such as your VIPs, your IT test group, etc. This is a many-to-many relationship. Here's the dashboard view. We can review the status of patch policies. And here's a wider dashboard view. This is Jamf Pro new dashboard, which provides quick access to the policy status, smart groups, and patch information. Let's zoom in on a policy status. It's easy to read, it has dynamic updating, and when you click on it, it brings you directly to the policy. Plus, when you hover over the different segments, the calculations changes on the fly. Pretty handy. Notifications has been updated too. A nicer look and feel, and will display the patch notification, any server warnings, like your VPP token is about to expire, and will serve as a mechanism for any other notification that could come in the future. We've seen how Jamf Pro utilized the current inventory data to perform checks for compliance. Now we move to take action. With automated compliance remediation, we're able to apply policies and management configuration profiles, as well as enforce our security baseline. We work in a world of ever-increasing remote offices. With Jamf Pro, you can apply the same security baseline no matter where the devices are located. Not only do we apply the security baseline, we report back regularly on the current status of devices, providing an insight into our state compliance. MDM configuration profiles is Apple's protocol to execute management commands, configure macOS settings, and use variables to populate information. In its basic form, the server sends out push notifications to the device via Apple's push notification service. The device polls the server for a command in response to the push notification. The device performs the command, and the device contacts the server to report the result of the last command. Some of the configuration profiles include deploying Wi-Fi profiles, restrictions, file vault encryptions, and the list goes on. Additional to Apple MDM framework is the Jamf binary, installed after enrollment, and provides administration accounts as well as remote access, but also deploying policies including user account modifications, deploy terminal commands, advanced directory bindings, and non-App Store application deployment, as well as custom scripts, firmware passwords, patch management, printer management, anything you want to wrap up and deploy, including custom screens notification. Self-service empowers employees to quickly find answers to their questions on their own. Employees can resolve their own problems and be able to take action using the information they find. In addition to meeting employee expectations for digital experience, self-service capabilities allow employees to spend less time on IT and more time on their work. These positive employee experiences drive employee engagements. Here's the new self-service application. Let's see what we can do. It's a modern Mac application with a new look and feel. As you click through the sidebar, the items dynamically change. Here are some examples of user experience. We can see the categories. All of these categories can be customized by you, the IT admin. Let's look at how easy it is to navigate around the self-service application by installing Dropbox on this computer. First, let's get some more information. Here we can see a description of the app. Notice the install button. When I click it, it's going to update. Now it's executing, finishing, and done. Very clear and easy for the end user. And now when we go back to the home screen and take a look at Dropbox, we can see the button has now been labeled as reinstall. This can be easily customized inside Jamf Pro to be aligned with your organization's message. It's also possible to brand self-service. Branding is important to convey to the end users they are installing policies from a trusted source and provide seamless branding across your IT services. This allows you to make self-service your own. You can customize your icon, the banner, and the name. Here, we've added all of those to make it fit Acme technologies. The app icon also updates in Launchpad and Finder. We think your users will really love it. All of these features are great, but you need your management solution to be able to manage new operating system revisions from launch day. Jamf provides Day Zero support for Apple operating systems by releasing supporting versions of Jamf Pro on the same day or before Apple's launch. But what does Day Zero really mean? We want to be able to continue to provide zero-touch deployment, device configurations, app management, as well as our inventory and security controls with current and newly deployed devices seamlessly. For more information around GDPR and implementing controls for device management, please check out the Information Commissioner's Office, which have a 12-step guide. Additionally, Cyber Essentials is a UK government scheme which aims to get all businesses into a state where they manage their IT security up to a certain standard. It aims to help organizations to implement basic levels of protection against cyber attacks, demonstrating to their customers and suppliers that they take cyber security seriously. So let's recap. We want to educate users on their responsibility and how they can be vigilant in ensuring privacy and security. E-safety for education initiatives and digital champions can help promote within an organization. Define a security baseline that works within your organization. Have the ability to take action, deploy a software or security update, force encryption before providing access to resources, reporting on the status of your organization devices. And finally, have controls in place for when a device is lost or stolen, and be able to report what state that device is in. So I want to thank you for your time in listening to this presentation. For more information, please check out jamf.com.